do something I would regret? You are a foolish old woman. You are standing in the way of something far greater than you can comprehend. How it all began. Once upon a time, there lived a famous shoe seller whose shop was in the middle of a famous market in Ibadan. She was popularly known as Iya Oni Bata, which meant the woman who sells shoes. She was such a friendly and outgoing woman who was loved by all. In her shop, she had different types of shoes, which she sold at extremely cheap prices. People trooped to her store to buy her shoes. They always left with smiles on their faces, surprised at the quality of shoes that she sold at such a ridiculously cheap price. All the shoes seller in the market grumbled, unable to understand how she is able to sell at such low prices without running at a loss. But Iya Oni Bata simply laughed and continued her business as usual. Unknown to everyone, Iya Oni Bata had a secret behind her warm smile and kind words. Her shoes were not just ordinary shoes. They did something to the wearer that no one could ever imagine. One day, a man named Yemi brought his pregnant wife to Iya Oni Bata's store to buy some shoes. His wife Shade picked up a fight with him over a message written to him by her best friend on a piece of paper she found in the pigeonhole of his car. Yemi tried to explain to Shade that the message meant nothing, but Shade was too enraged to listen. Her heart pounded with fury as she stared at him and began to speak. "I don't care what excuses you have, Yemi," she snapped. "You have been lying to me, and now I see it clearly." Yemi sighed, running a hand through his head. "Shade, can we not do this here? Let's just buy the shoes and go home." Shade scoffed, turning her back on him. The shoes they had picked out sat on the counter, forgotten as they talked. Iya Oni Bata, who was standing next to them, smiled and tried convincing Shade to buy the shoes. But Shade remained adamant, claiming that she was no longer interested in them. Seeing how uninterested the couple was in the shoes, Iya Oni Bata decided to play a trick on them to make them buy the shoes that they had picked. She pretended to be on the call with some customers who seemed interested in the same shoe they had picked. She said, "Yes, it's available. The customer just changed her mind about buying the shoes. But if you come quickly, I will keep them for you." Shade looked at her curiously, glancing back at the shoes and studied it for a few seconds. She had already decided to let go of them, but something in Iya Oni Bata's words made her assume that someone else was rushing to come and buy the shoes. So maybe it was really valuable. So Shade decided to take the shoes for herself. Her husband, noticing her hesitation and eventual show of interest, signed and pulled out his wallet. "Fine, let's just buy it," he said as he paid for the shoe that she had picked, as well as a second shoe that he thinks will suit him. Iya Oni Bata smiled sweetly as she wrapped the shoes in a white bag. "You made the right choice, my children," she said to them, and she handed the white bag to Shade, who simply smiled and walked away. Their drive home was silent and boring, as Shade sat next to her husband in the car with her hands folded as she stared straight out of the window. She was fuming in anger because of the message she saw in Yemi's car, and the last thing she wanted was to have a conversation with him. Yemi, sensing how moody she was, focused on the road, gripping the steering tightly as he drove. A few minutes later, they arrived their home. Shade walked into the house, ignoring her husband completely. As she went straight to the bedroom, Shade dropped the bag of shoes in the wardrobe and proceeded to the kitchen. As she was in the kitchen cooking something for herself and her husband to eat, suddenly she heard a loud scream coming from upstairs. Shade, holding her pregnant belly, rushed up the stairs in panic to see what was going on. On entering the bedroom, she met her husband fast asleep. Shade could not understand what had just happened. She stared at Yemi, who seemed to be sleeping peacefully on their bed. Shade wondered if it was her imagination. She knew she heard the scream, but seeing Yemi fast asleep made her question if what she had heard was real. She returned to the kitchen and continued preparing her meals. Moments later, she was done and she served Yemi his food, expecting him to eat after the strange ordeal. Yemi did not care for her food. He informed her that he wasn't hungry, and Shade could not believe what she was hearing. For all the years they have been married, Yemi has never refused her food before. Even when they fought, he still ensured that he ate the food that she cooked. Now, seeing him reject her food broke her heart in a way that she never imagined possible. "So you're not rejecting my food?" she asked her husband, who hissed and continued to sleep. Shade, filled with anger, rolled her eyes and left the bedroom. She sat in the dining room angry as she stared right into her food. Something about Yemi's behavior unsettled her. He had never rejected her food before, not even after the worst arguments. But tonight, he had become a different person entirely. Shade, trying to shake off the discomfort that she felt, made excuses for him in her head. Maybe he's just tired, she thought to herself. But deep inside, something did not sit right. Shade had an appointment with a doctor the following day, and after dressing, she put on her new shoe and headed straight to the hospital. When she arrived, normal routine tests were carried out, and the doctors were shocked at what they saw. Her blood level had dropped very drastically, making the doctors very concerned about her health. "How are you feeling?" the doctor asked Shade. "Are you feeling weak or dizzy?" the doctor further asked. Shade shook her head, wondering why the doctor looked so concerned. "Mrs. Adeniran, this is actually serious," the doctor finally said to her, his voice heavy as he explained to her that her blood level was dropping at an alarming rate. "If this continues, it could put you and the baby in danger," he said. "Something has to be done." "Dr. Olushola will attend to you," he said, informing her that he had to leave immediately as he had an emergency procedure to carry out. Shade, after hearing what the doctor said, felt like her world was crashing before her eyes. She called her husband Yemi on the phone, but he did not pick her calls. Shade sat in the hospital bed clutching her phone. As all the calls went unanswered, her heart pounded as she wondered why Yemi was ignoring her. Yemi had never ignored her calls before, and Shade could not help but worry. She sat there, panicking, as Dr. Olushola walked into the room to talk to her again. "Mrs. Shade Adeniran," he said gently, "we can't wait any longer. If we don't act now, we could lose you and the baby. We need to take you into the theater for an emergency surgery. Call your husband right now and tell him." Shade swallowed hard, nodding. She told the doctor that she had to go. Dr. Olushola did all he could to stop her, but Shade was all bent on ensuring that her husband was fine. After all, she felt fine and could not go on with an unplanned surgery, with her heart filled with worry. She arrived home few minutes later to find Yemi in the arms of her best friend, Tayo. Shade stood there and watched as she felt a warm liquid flow down her legs. Her baby was slipping away. At the same moment, she was watching her husband wrapped in the arms of another woman. A sharp pain tore through her stomach. Consumed by an excruciating pain, she began to cry. Yemi and her best friend Tayo sprang up from the chair as they both stared at each other in shock. Yemi rushed forward as he grabbed her by the hand and watched. As her vision became blurry, Shade fell to the ground unconscious. Yemi quickly rushed her to the hospital. A few hours later, she woke up in the hospital ward to realize that her baby was gone. Her best friend Tayo was sitting right next to her with her husband, Yemi, who did not seem to be remorseful about all that had just happened. Shade could feel her heart race in anger. She laid in bed as Yemi informed her that he was tired of their marriage. "I love your friend Tayo. I would like to be with her," he said to Shade, who could not believe what her husband was saying. Shade felt as if her world had crashed on her. She stared at Yemi, searching for an iota of guilt in him to see if he understood the pain that he had caused her. Yemi looked so indifferent. His face was blank, as though she were a stranger, not the woman he had vowed to love forever. Her best friend Tayo was sitting beside him, holding his hands, her expression filled with sympathy. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, but Shade could not see any atom of remorse in her eyes. She clenched the hospital sheets, her body trembling as her husband smiled sheepishly at her best friend Tayo. Her baby was gone. Her marriage was gone. The life she had once built, the love she had sacrificed everything for was gone. It has all been ripped away from under her nose. The doctor walked in at that moment to reveal to her that she needed someone to care for her. Shade turned to her husband Yemi, who informed her that he will be very busy and won't have the time to take care of her. Shade could not believe what she was hearing. She laid there in pain as she watched Yemi and her best friend Tayo walk out of the hospital ward. As Shade laid on the hospital bed, something in her shattered completely. The betrayal, the pain, the loss. It all came crashing down at once. With trembling hands, she dialed the number she had never thought she would. After several rings, a familiar voice answered and asked if she was fine. "I need your help, mother," Shade said to her stepmother as she burst out in tears. Her stepmother, hearing how devastated she sounded, asked where she was, and after a few hours, she arrived at the hospital in search of Shade. All these years, Shade had kept her distance from her stepmother because she believed she was a wicked woman who never really cared for her well-being. But in this dark moment of hers, as she laid broken and helpless in the hospital bed, she had no one else to turn to. Her stepmother, Mama Titi, arrived at the hospital shortly after receiving her call. Her eyes were full of concern. She caught sight of Shade, who burst out into tears on seeing her. "What happened to you, Shade?" she asked. As Shade narrated the whole story to her, the weight of her loss, the betrayal of her husband and her best friend, the emptiness inside of her all overwhelmed her. Her stepmother did not speak immediately. Instead, she sat down and took Shade's hands. It was a small gesture, but it was enough to break the wall that Shade had built around her. Few days passed and Shade was discharged from the hospital. She arrived home with her stepmother, who cared for her and ensured that she regained her strength. Mama Titi cooked for her, bathed her and also comforted her in ways that Shade had never expected. For the first time in her life, Shade saw her stepmother in a different light, not as a villain, but as the only person who had stood by her when she had no one else. Deep inside, a fire burned within Shade, who could not shake off the feeling that her suffering had not been ordinary. It wasn't just bad luck. It felt like something more darker than that was at play. She spoke to her stepmother, who advised her to pray fervently for answers. Shade decided to adhere to her stepmother's advice and prayed heavily. And that was how everything escalated in a way she never imagined. Her husband Yemi developed a deep hatred for her. He no longer had any form of empathy and even went as far as locking her out of their home. One night, when she returned from a short visit to the hospital, Shade banged on the door, calling his name, but he did not respond. She could hear laughter inside. Joyous laughter. Her best friend had not only taken her place in the house she had built with her husband Yemi, she had encouraged her husband to lock her out of their home. Tears streamed down her face as she stood outside shivering from the cold. The betrayal was like a knife driven into her soul. Her stepmother Mama Titi found her the next morning, her body weak. Without hesitation, Mama Titi decided to take her back to her own home. On their way, they went through the market as Mama Titi had something to pick up from someone at the market. As they walked down the market, Shade noticed something unusual that she had never noticed before. As Iya Oni Bata stood in her store and people trooped in and out to buy shoes, Shade caught sight of a very terrifying demon, attracting people to the shop. Her breath caught in her throat. She grabbed Mama Titi's arms. "Mama, did you see that?" Shade whispered, pointing to Iya Oni Bata's store, but Mama Titi could not see what she was saying. Shade stood there terrified as she watched the demon attract people into Iya Oni Bata's shop. She immediately remembered the day she and her husband went to the shop to buy her shoes. It was after that day that everything in her life fell apart. Her hands trembled as the realization dawned on her that Iya Oni Bata wasn't just a shoe seller, but an evil woman who preyed on the destiny of unsuspecting people. And now, Shade could see what no one else could. She looked down at her feet and realized that she was still wearing the evil shoe. Shade immediately narrated all that had happened in Iya Oni Bata's shop to her stepmother. Mama Titi could not believe what she was hearing. She took Shade to her pastor, who revealed that the evil shoe was behind all the misfortunes that she had faced. The evil shoe had the sole goal of ruining happy families, turning love into hatred, trust into betrayal, and joy into sorrow. It was cursed with an evil spirit designed to manipulate emotions, separate marriages, and destroy destinies. This shoe is a cursed object. It was created by an evil woman whose goal was to steal the fortune of those who wear it. Every time you wore it, it drained your blessings and transferred them to her. At that moment, Shade realized the reason why Iya Oni Bata's shoes were cheap. She did not sell her shoes to make profit. All she was focused on was the destinies of all that bought her shoes, which was far more valuable to her than the profits. Tears welled up Shade's eyes as she finally understood the full extent of what had happened to her. Iya Oni Bata had stolen everything from her: her love, her marriage, her baby, and now her peace of mind. The pastor revealed to her that she had to destroy the shoe immediately to set herself free. He further stated, however, that if the shoes were not properly destroyed, the curse could linger and wreak more havoc in their lives. Shade did as the pastor had instructed and burnt her shoe. As the shoe went up in flames in front of her, a loud and piercing voice was heard. After the burning of her own pair of shoes, she knew that her husband was still under the spell of his own shoe. Shade was so sure that her husband would not listen to her if she told him all that had happened. So Shade decided to devise a brilliant plan, which she knew would work. Shade knew that Yemi never wore his own pair of shoes to work, so she paid a visit to their home when Yemi had gone to work. She knew that her best friend Tayo would as well be out of the house, so she decided to act quickly before they returned. She used her spare key to gain access to the house, and she searched the entire place for the shoe. Luckily, Shade found the shoe tucked under their bed. She immediately wrapped it in a plastic bag and headed out of her house to her stepmother's place. Shade arrived at her stepmother's house with the shoe. She knew she had to burn it to set her husband free. However, as she was about burning the shoe, she had a knock on the door. She wondered who it could be. Shade hesitated for a moment as she stared at the door in terror. Her stepmother, on hearing the doorbell, walked out of the room to check who it was. She opened the door and lo and behold, Iya Oni Bata, the evil shoe seller, was standing there fuming in anger. "Where is she?" she asked angrily. As Mama Titi asked her what she was doing in her home, she answered her saying, "I am not here for you. I am here for that girl," she said with a voice that was so menacing that it sent shivers down Shade's spine. However, Mama Titi did not budge. She squared her shoulders, blocking the doorway. "You have no business here, Iya Oni Bata. Leave here before I do something that you would regret." Iya Oni Bata let out a chilling laughter, her voice echoing through the house like a whisper from the grave. "Do something I would regret? You're a foolish old woman," she sneered. "You are standing in the way of something far greater than you can comprehend." Mama Titi tightened her grip on the door frame. "I know who you are now. A thief, a devourer of destiny and happiness. You may have succeeded with others, but not with my daughter under my watch." Iya Oni Bata's face darkened, her warm demeanor darkening entirely. Her eyes turned into something unnatural. "The girl has taken something from me and have come to reclaim it." Inside, Shade clutched the cursed shoe tightly, her hands trembling. She knew she had to act fast. If Iya Oni Bata had come for her, it meant she was afraid. It meant that the curse was already weakening. Shade ran to the fire pit behind the house. She doused the shoe with a flammable liquid, murmuring a prayer from her heart onto the shoe. The moment the flammable liquid touched the cursed shoe, a horrific scream erupted from it. The shoe twisted unnaturally in her hands, as if something inside was fighting to escape outside. Iya Oni Bata screamed for Shade to be stopped. Her voice was no longer human, as it was deep and filled with rage. Shade, however, did not stop. She flung the shoe into the fire, and the moment the flames engulfed it, the entire house shook. A dark smoke erupted from the shoe, twisting it into an unnatural form. The room turned ice cold as the evil entity that had been living inside the shoe was chased out. Outside, where Iya Oni Bata was standing, she let out a blood-curdling scream, clutching her chest in pain. Her body convulsed as her hands clutched at her skin, as if something was being ripped from her. Shade and Mama Titi watched in horror as Iya Oni Bata's body began to decay before their eyes. Her once smooth skin turned grey, her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed to the ground and turned into dust. Just like that, Iya Oni Bata's vision was gone. The silence that followed was deafening as Shade and her stepmother, Mama Titi, stood there frozen. They stared at the pile of dust where Iya Oni Bata's body had once stood. A cold wind blew past them, scattering the ashes into the air. Yemi, however, was having dinner with Tayo when the curse was broken. His eyes woken in shock as he wondered what he was doing with Tayo. "Where is my wife?" he asked Tayo, who sat there confused to hear such a question from him. "What kind of a useless question is that?" she asked Yemi, who immediately grabbed his phone to call his wife Shade. "I have not been this confused in my entire life," Tayo thought to herself. She thought that Yemi loved her deeply, not knowing that he was under a spell that was now broken. Yemi's hands trembled as he dialed Shade's number. He had no idea why he had abandoned his wife, why he had betrayed her, why he had felt such unnatural attachment towards Tayo. It was as though a weight had been lifted from his chest. Suddenly, he could see everything clearly. The phone rang and Shade, still standing in her stepmother's living room, stared at the screen of her phone in shock. Her heart pounding, she picked up the phone. Yemi's shaking voice came through the line. "Shade, Shade," he said. "Words fail me. I don't know what happened, I swear. I don't know how I let it happen. Please, just tell me where you are." Shade closed her eyes. She could hear the desperation in his voice, but that was not enough. "You left me," she said softly. "You left me when I needed you the most." "I know," he whispered. "I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you will let me." Tayo suddenly snatched the phone from Yemi's hands. "Yemi, what is the meaning of this? I thought you loved me." But Yemi did not even look at her. His eyes were filled with regrets, his hands shaking as he took the phone back. Shade, please, his voice broken. I need to see you. Shade was silent for a very long time before she spoke. You were under a spell, Yemi. The shoe seller, Iya Oni Bata, used her cursed shoes to ruin our lives. Everything that happened, your betrayal, my suffering, the loss of our child was all because of her evil scheme. What? Iya Oni Bata? The shoe seller? Yes, Shade's voice was steady, but filled with pain. I destroyed the cursed shoes, and the moment I did, the spell over you was broken. Yemi apologized to Shade for all he had done. He assured her that his feeling for Tayo was not real. Tayo, on hearing this, broke down in tears, her face turning pale as the reality dawned on her. The love that she thought was real, the affection she believed he had for her, it was all a lie, a manipulation caused by the cursed shoe. She had betrayed her best friend for nothing. She grabbed his hands and begged him not to do this to her. You love me. We are happy together, she said, desperation dripping from her voice. Yemi slowly pulled his hands away, shaking his head. I don't love you, Tayo. I don't even know why I ever thought I did, he said to Tayo, who broke down in tears and began to cry. Tayo's knees buckled. She collapsed into a chair and began to sob. She had lost everything, her best friend, the man she thought loved her, and most of all, her dignity. So Tayo packed her bags and left, knowing that she was fighting a lost battle. Yemi, however, did not expect Shade to take him back immediately. He knew that he had to earn her trust again. So for weeks, he showed up at Mama Titi's house, pleading for another chance, proving to her in every way that he regrets everything that had happened. Shade, despite everything, still loved him, but she was no longer the naive woman she had once been. She made sure that he worked for her forgiveness, setting clear boundaries. She needed to see that he was sincere and he was willing to make things right, not just with words. And Yemi did just that. Months passed and their bond grew stronger. The wounds were still there, but they slowly began to heal. Together, they mourned their lost child, and together they found comfort in each other again. The lesson to be learned from this story is that not every bargain is a blessing. The allure of cheap quality shoes from Iya Oni Bata's store blinded people to the hidden danger it carried. And this served as a reminder that when something seems to be too good to be true, it is often not so. The people we least expect can often become the greatest support system for us. So we should learn to give people the benefit of a doubt. Selfishness always results in regrets. Tayo, blinded by her selfish desire, lost everything: her best friend, her dignity, and her peace of mind. Betrayal may seem rewarding at the beginning, but in the end, it comes with pain. Another key lesson also learns is that people should not strive in ignorance. Iya Oni Bata preyed on people who never knew that their lack of awareness manipulated their lives. This teaches us to always be vigilant and be spiritually minded and be careful about the things we bring into our homes and lives. Furthermore, the story emphasizes that forgiveness is powerful and trust must be rebuilt. Shade chose to forgive Yemi, but she did not immediately let him back into her heart. Instead, she set boundaries and allowed him to prove himself. This is a crucial lesson for anyone who has been hurt. It is okay to forgive, but it is also important to ensure that any person who hurts you takes accountability and genuinely works to make amends. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this beautiful story, please drop a like on the video and leave a comment on your favorite part of the story, moral lessons, and so on. Also, share the story with your friends and family. On your notification bell and do well to subscribe to my channel, Folktales by Queen Mother, so you can get notified anytime a new and interesting video is released. Please be rest assured that if you support me by liking, commenting, and subscribing to my channel, you will always stay motivated. It has not been easy getting here, but I really appreciate all of you who always watch my videos to the end. It's a lot of work, days of sleepless nights before one of these videos you watch on this channel is produced. I am counting on your support always to take this channel to the top. Thank you once again for your unwavering love and support. God bless you all.